Kalanchoe Marnieriana. Got some? Want some? Curious about how to keep these tall, leggy, leafy, bodaciously bulbous bitches happy? Listen, if you want your Marnier's Kalanchoe to be legendary like Bowie, then stick the fuck around. Because GabMonster, Toby McSchmuter, the strikingly attractive Lady Space Cowgirl and I fit to get into all that shit. Alrighty then, so this lovely leafy lass of a succulent here in front of me is known by the name of Chloe Kalanchoe. She's been featured in quite a few of my videos and has been with me since early August of 2019. Of all the plants I've ever kept, Chloe here is hands down the most prolific. These here are a very small percentage of the many plants that I've propagated from Chloe over the past year and a little bit. Chloe belongs to the species known scientifically as Kalanchoe Marnieriana, which can be recognized by their flat, rounded, paddle-shaped blue-green leaves whose tips will turn a rhubarb red if kept in the right lighting.
Rhubarb.
Exactly. This species of Kalanchoe is known commonly by the name of Marnier's Kalanchoe. Listen, I'm only like 78% sure that that is a correct pronunciation of this plant's common name. We'll get into why that is later. For now though, let's talk about how to keep these lovely leafy leggy blue-green bitches happy. Marnier's Kalanchoe is a succulent, and though they need to be watered a little bit more often than many other succulents, you should still be very careful not to overwater them, because though they may be slightly more forgiving than other types of succulents when it comes to being overwatered, to overwater Marnier's Kalanchoe can still be deadly. So try to let the soil in their containers dry out between waterings. Rather than relying on any kind of a set schedule when deciding how often to water your Kalanchoe, I recommend watering your plant when it tells you that it is thirsty. Listen, if the idea of talking plants is new to you, then first of all, welcome to the channel. Consider subscribing and maybe even leaving a like if this wacky crazy shit show isn't too much for you to handle. And second of all, yes, plants can fucking talk. Thanks, GabMonster. Marnier's Kalanchoe, like many other succulents, will exude a coded message in the form of slightly wrinkled leaves when they are ready to be watered. When it comes to the other subterranean aspects of keeping this type of Kalanchoe in tip-top shape and fit as fucking fiddles, be aware that, again, Marnier's Kalanchoe are succulents and should be potted into a quick-draining type of soil such as a cactus mix. Also, don't be a stupid ass dumb shit who and do shit like fucking around with a non-draining container. Be good to your plants, not just your Kalanchoe, but all your plants, and always pot every plant into a draining container. Watering your Kalanchoe correctly, potting it into a quick draining soil, and keeping it in a draining container will help your plant to avoid all kinds of sticky situations, such as root rot, fungal infections, pests, and lots of other complications that for Kalanchoe and most other succulents represent a one-way ticket to a watery grave. Marnier's Kalanchoe need lots of sun. Okay, like a lot. Ideally, we're talking 5 to 6 hours of direct sunlight every day. For this reason, they will do very well in greenhouses or south-facing windows if kept indoors. Here's the thing though, they can be overheated in midday sun depending on the temperature. The risk of this will be diminished if these plants are kept cool and watered correctly though. So if you're planning on giving your plant this much sun, then it is all the more necessary to be watchful for encrypted messages embedded in the leaves of your leggy, leafy, succulent green friends. And hey, if you're having trouble finding a good sunny spot that's not too hot for your photosynthetic friend, I hear you, Marsha. Listen, I can see that you're stressed, and I would be too if I were in your situation. Sure, it seemed that the south-facing window of your Arizona kitchen would be the perfect place for that drop-dead gorgeous eye-catcher of a succulent beauty that caught your eye at the nursery that day that you were out on the town. And for weeks, there were no signs that it wasn't the perfect spot for your newly acquired photosynthetic friend. But then, on a lazy Sunday afternoon, you notice that in addition to the rhubarb red tips of the blue-green paddle-shaped leaves on your Marnier's Kalanchoe, there were other marks as well. That's right, Marsha. Some of the leaves, the ones nearest the window, had begun to shrivel and brown, and a couple of them looked as though they might never recover. Sure, you got other rooms in your house where the temperature is more suitable for your Kalanchoe, but none of those rooms offer the direct sun to which your Kalanchoe companion has become accustomed. Listen, Marsha, when natural light cannot be found where it is needed, there will always be ways to find rays. Anyways, your Kalanchoe will survive with significantly less light than this, though expect the leaves to be spaced a lot farther apart because of etiolation, the dropping of leaves near the base of the plant, and much slower growth overall. Also, those rhubarb red tips we talked about earlier, fucking forget about it. Now, you wouldn't know it by looking at Chloe specifically, but Kalanchoe Marnieriana is a flowering plant. And while getting these stubborn leafy bitches to bloom is a little bit tricky, it can be done. The trick is to, for around 6 weeks during winter, water them a little bit less frequently than you might during spring and summer. And to keep them somewhere where they get plenty of light, but only during a 10-hour window. And then keep them in complete darkness for the rest of the day. Also during this 6-week period, they'll need to be kept somewhere where the temperature stays between 45 degrees Fahrenheit and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't let them freeze though, because Kalanchoe Marnieriana are not frost tolerant. If you are successful, expect your plant to be adorned with one or more tall stems from which several bell-shaped flowers that are coral in color will dangle. Marnier's Kalanchoe, like many other succulents, don't necessarily need any fertilizer, but they can be fertilized if you want to give them a little bit of an extra push. This is the fertilizer that I use, and I only use it on Kalanchoe that have been potted into their containers long enough for the fertilizer in the soil in their containers to have been depleted. When this is the case, I'll fertilize them with one shot once a month, every month, between late spring and the end of summer. This is a liquid foaming fertilizer, and I apply it to the surface of the soil in my plant's containers immediately after having given them a good watering. Also, don't fucking eat these plants. According to the ASPCA, they are toxic to cats and dogs, and if eaten by humans, it will cause diarrhea, vomiting, and in some cases, though it is said to be rare, it will even cause an abnormal heart rhythm. So yeah, keep your Kalanchoe away from dogs, cats, koala bears, lemurs, ferrets, and any other roommate who you suspect may be prone to, nibble. And don't you fucking eat it either. Why would... What? Okay, earlier I said that I would return to the treacherous and murky waters of the pronunciation of this plant's scientific and common names. It is now time to do so. When it comes to the pronunciation of this plant's scientific name, I'm around 96% sure that its correct pronunciation is Kalanchoe Marnieriana. I wouldn't go as far as to give you any kind of a guarantee on that, but I'm, pretty sure. Pretty fucking sure. When it comes to the pronunciation of this plant's common name, now I did hear one YouTube plant care aficionado pronounce it as Marnier'S Kalanchoe, but in that video even she said that she wasn't sure she was pronouncing it correctly. I call it Marnier'S Kalanchoe, and here's why. This plant was given the name Marnier'S Kalanchoe by somebody named Herman Jacobson in honor of the French botanical explorer Julien Marnier Lapastal, who I guess found this plant while exploring in Madagascar. Listen, this French explorer was French, and in French you don't pronounce the last letter of a word if that word ends in a consonant. R is a consonant, so I say Marnier, as in Grand Marnier. I mean, we could probably look that up, but I feel like this digression has already gone way too far off the rails. Alrighty people, when it comes to diseases, most diseases to which your plant is susceptible have to do with the roots and can be easily avoided if you water it correctly and keep it potted in quick draining soil in a draining container. Let's be real though. Accidents happen, and if you f up real bad and your plant's roots do get infected, don't worry about it. Here's the thing. There are ways to reverse the damage caused by root rot and fungal infections, but this plant in particular is so easily propagated that my advice is to simply abandon ship on those tainted roots by chopping off the top of this succulent and rooting those cuttings into clean, fresh, disease-free cactus mix in a draining container. That's right, a draining container. Because you're not a stupid ass dumb shit. As far as pests are concerned, keep an eye out for mollusks and mealybugs. I live in the high desert of northeastern Arizona where slugs and snails only exist on TV and in people's nightmares and imaginations. But if you live somewhere where you fear that such a horrific creature might try to invade your crop of Kalanchoe, I recommend littering the surface of the soil near the bases of your plants with broken up bits of eggshells or diatomaceous earth. And if you find yourself in a melee with mealybugs, then check out this video where I outline how exactly to make and use an alcohol dish soap solution that is highly effective against mealybugs, scale, aphids, and lots of other pests. And it's safe to use on these and pretty much every other type of succulent. Listen, earlier I said that Chloe here was hands down the most prolific of all the houseplants I've ever kept. That is partly because in addition to being bewitchingly beautiful and very easy to grow, Marnier's Kalanchoe are so fucking easy to propagate, like for real. They can be very easily propagated from cuttings by simply chopping off the ends of any of your stems and rooting those cuttings into some dry, well-packed cactus mix. And also, compared with other types of succulents, Kalanchoe Marnieriana are pretty efficiently propagated from leaves as well. I'm not going to get too carried away with the specifics of Marnier's Kalanchoe propagation because I plan on dedicating an entire video to that exact topic someday very soon. Also, if you're wondering what the f this idea of leaf propagation is all about, then check out this video where I get into all that shit. And hey, as long as we're on the topic of chopping bits off these gorgeous green goddesses, I should probably mention that as far as these twiggy, protuberant, aerial, or adventitious roots are concerned, you can leave them attached if you're planning on propagating that bit of plant sometime in the near future, but they really don't serve any purpose as far as keeping your plant healthy, and chopping them off is completely safe and will not hurt your plant at all. One cool looking way to do this is by the use of your sweet valley flipping skills, but most people will probably just prefer to use some pruning shears. Honestly though, my personal favorite way to trim away these unsightly twiggy protuberances is by the use of nail clippers. Hey, listen. Do you like bad graffiti, worse jokes, wacky macrame, and pretty good advice about taking care of your houseplants? Well then f***ing subscribe! Thanks GabMonster. That's right, click that notification bell too so you never miss a new video.